Welcome back to the channel, guys. Last week I released a video about why your friends will not play World of Tanks and how the new player experience is atrocious. Now, I didn't offer any solutions in that video, and one thing I cannot stand is someone who complains all the time but does not offer solutions. So this is my solutions to the problems that plague World of Tanks. Now, I do want to give World of Tanks and Wargaming credit. The player experience is significantly better now than it was 12, 13 years ago. And you know what? Players should not have to suffer through 50% crews with stock grinds and equipping your tanks with a camo net and binoculars, because that's the only thing you can dismount without using gold, because you don't have any money to put into the game. It is better, trust me. And also you can grind through tanks faster than you ever could. But that doesn't mean that Wargaming can't improve. And to start with that improvement, I'm going to be talking about crew skills. Now, to recap a problem that I pointed out last week, the stationary camo on an even 90 that has no crew skills versus one that has all the crew skills and field mods unlocked is 28.12 versus 53.12. Basically, the even 90 with all the crew skills and field mods is twice as good as the stock even 90 with a base crew. And that is the problem that Wargaming is actually facing with its crew skills. Even if you have the same tank, and even if you put the same equipment on it, just because of crew skills alone, that one even 90 is going to be better than the other. And honestly, this base even 90, if you're facing a tech tree tank that has pretty good crew skills, it ain't gonna matter. It's still gonna be bad. So, is there an easy fix for this? Actually, there is a really easy fix for it. All I did was give this even 90 two crew skills. I gave it Brothers in Arms and I gave it Concealment. And all of a sudden, the stationary camo is 49.8. The moving camo is 49.8 versus the 53.12. Now, these tanks are more or less on even playing field. Yeah, the other one's still a little bit better. But you know what? Player skill can actually come into it now. This is not going to be at such a disadvantage. This is going to be more fun. And this is going to play across all tanks. Once you put two crew skills on it, which I think the first two are very impactful, and then you got like the third and fourth, which are probably almost as impactful. The fifth and sixth, But there is another thing that I recommend Wargaming do, and that is cut down the amount of XP it takes to unlock the rest of their crew skills by half. Tanks are a lot more fun and enjoyable when when you have all the crew skills. Trust me. If you go play one of your maxed out crews and then go play a base crew, you will notice a difference. All right, so the next thing that Wargaming needs to do if they want to improve player experience of the game, and that is to remove stock grinds. They really weren't fun 13, 14 years ago. However, player experiences and expectations at the time were vastly different than they are now. Players are used to jumping into games nowadays and immediately being competitive. And Wargaming does not currently allow that, and that is definitely holding back the game. But let's just take a look at the Black Prince with a stock gun. You got 148 millimeters of pin and 140 damage alpha. Now, you can see some pretty heavily armored tanks at tier 9, and I'm just going to go with the Mousekin. I'm pretty sure that there's no place on the front of this tank that the Black Prince could actually pin with a standard round. But let's say you did manage to get a high roll pin, and then you get to do 140 damage, and he just points, clicks, takes out half your health, because you're basically just an annoying cockroach at that point. So yes, I am going to throw Wargaming a few ideas, though, how to better implement this. It would make sense if you're doing away with stock grinds, that the amount of XP that it took to unlock those, stock turret, the next turret, the next gun, the next engine, all be rolled into the XP to unlock the next tank. This also probably means you need to rework blueprints. Now, what I would do with blueprints is I would allow them to only reduce the cost of the next tank by 50%. This makes players have to buy that tank to grind it out, or they can choose to use their free XP if they want, or convert to free XP using gold. Wargaming likes to sell gold, so let's throw them some bones out here. This would actually be really good for the game. Not only would you have a 2 crew skill to put on these tanks if you did want to grind them out, and they're not going to be so painful. You don't have to necessarily do it if you don't want to. You can just free XP through the tank. Overall, this would drastically improve player satisfaction with the game. Trust me. Stock grinds are not fun, and this still gives some room for Wargaming to make a little bit of money if they want to. All right, number 3 on the list, I'm going to talk about the matchmaker. I am not a fan of 2+2 matchmaking. I think it is really bad for the game. Just saying, if you're in a tier 8, you don't really want to see tier 10s. You're most of the time it's not going to be a fun fight. It's not going to be all that fair. If you're in a tier 7, you certainly don't want to see a lot of the tier 9 heavies. And if you're a tier 6, you don't want to see Skoda T56s and BZs. They'll entirely ruin your experience. While the game isn't necessarily balanced when it's +1, -1, it is significantly better. And that should be the goal of what Wargaming is trying to achieve with its matchmaker is increasing player enjoyment. And I have yet to hear a single player ever give me a good argument that I thought was like, okay, good point when they were talking about +2 matchmaking. It's bad. Okay. 95 to 98% of the player base agrees it is bad. I think Wargaming should listen to its players in this one and implement something that is no more than +1, -1. I think the new matchmaker changes coming with the maximum 5 tank destroyers. That sounds pretty good. The light tanks being capped out at 3. I think the sweet spot would be 2 personally, but you know what? If it's capped out at 3, it's better than there being 4 or 5 light tanks in a match, I suppose. So yes, I'm optimistic that the new changes will be beneficial to the game. However, if I was Wargaming, I would seriously try testing out +1, -1. I think players would be far more satisfied with that, and it'll increase player enjoyment dramatically, which honestly should be the goal because that's going to help with player retention. All right, next up, number 4, we're going to talk about the 2 different kinds of premium count. Wargaming, just bundle them. I'll be honest with you, if you bundle both these together, the game is so much more enjoyable. Now, most players that are playing World of Tanks are a little bit older, and they're probably used to paying subscriptions for things. So this wouldn't be all that unusual to offer a $15 to $17 subscription. I think RuneScape actually costs $17 now, if I'm not mistaken. Last time I played, so that is pretty much standard these days. Um, this fixes, like, if you combine both of these together, honestly, you get to move your equipment around. You get enough gold to do your battle passes with. You also make more credits through the premium days. Overall, the gaming experience is a lot better. Wargaming should focus on this, to be honest. I think if you just bundled these and made it a pretty good deal, a lot of players would actually use it. Now, I do have some suggestions to do with. I'll talk about premium days here in a little bit, but actually, I'll do that next. Okay, so here's a crazy idea for Wargaming. Player auction house. Imagine you get tired of your BZ-176 and you want to sell it. You throw it up on auction house. You can put, I want 100,000 bonds for it. Player goes sitting on 100,000 bonds, says, I want that BZ-176. Sold. You no longer had the BZ-176. You get your 100,000 bonds and you're happy. Sorry, dog crying. All right. Next thing you could think of is also this allows Wargaming to allow players to get their hands on these tanks without actually reselling them. Because let's face it, if they sold the BZ-176 again, people would go nuts over it. They would hate it. But if you allow players to make the transaction, it allows players to actually get their hands on these tanks without Wargaming can just kind of wipe their hands clean and says, hey, it's not us. You're the one doing it. Also, this could be a really good revenue stream for Wargaming. Think of, they could just throw things on their auction house for like gold, or if they wanted to drain resources, they could say, you got to pay us a lot of credits, but you can get these 3D skins, you can get these 2D skins, these decals. Also, it allows players to get tanks that have only been sold in loot boxes, like the ATT-60 or the Yag Tiger prototype. It would really help with the economy that players can kind of make these transactions with credits, free XP, bonds, or even gold for that matter, if Wargaming thinks that is appropriate. And like I said, Wargaming can also participate in this by offering things constantly on this auction house. So overall, I think it's a pretty cool and unique idea for the game. And also, think about this for a second. There's a lot of players that would like to get their hands on like a 907 or a VKK. So you could actually have a situation where players that are participating in maneuvers get these tanks that they don't really want, and they could offer them up on the auction house for, I don't know, a bunch of credits or something because they don't like grinding credits. That would be great for the game because it allows players a alternate way to get their hands on some of these vehicles. So yeah, I would highly consider it, Wargaming. I think it's a pretty cool idea. So next is the credit economy in World of Tanks. So I just want to say, credits or lack thereof should never be the reason you are not playing the tank that you want to play. So, with that being said, I would boost non-premium tank credit making. I don't know. Would it be like 30%? Maybe. Maybe that'd be enough. Where players are actually making credits at every single tier. That should be the goal. Even if they are just firing premium rounds, it should be the goal that they're making credits, and that would allow them to start unlocking and purchasing every tank in the game. And mind you, if you already have decent crews on them, they can afford to play them. They're actually making credits to play them. And you boost premium tanks. You can boost them 40-50% for that matter. Players will actually start playing a lot of these tanks, creating a lot of diversity in the matches where that doesn't currently exist. So yes, I highly recommend Wargaming boost the credit making of all tanks. And this would help if players are playing the tanks that they want to play. That means player retention is going to be higher. That means player enjoyment is going to be higher, and you can actually grow the game. This is a win-win-win for everybody. And the more higher player retention, the more gold and money Wargaming is making. Okay, so for this next idea, I'm actually going to steal it from Kaizu, who did a reaction on my video about the new player experience. They should actually provide some kind of label on tanks to let players know, hey, these tanks are easy to play, these tanks are hard. And I think most players would agree a 50B or a Concept 5 is very hard, versus a IS-7 or IS-4 would be very easy, or at least easy. Probably a mouse would be moderate. And I think light tanks, we can all agree, those are very hard. And this would help new players who are getting in the game to know, hey, these tanks are easier, these lines are easier, or these lines are much harder. So they don't need like a new player. His first thing he does is go up a light tank line. There's World Tanks is a very easy game to play. It is very hard to master. It's a lot of depth to this game, and it's probably one of the reasons I keep coming back to it. Okay, so next up we have maps, and I know everyone likes to criticize the maps. I'm going to be a little bit more kind about this. I'm going to give Wargaming credit. They have improved the maps that they've been editing for the last 2 years. Every one of them they've edited, I think, is more playable than it was before. That doesn't mean they're in a great position, and I will say that especially the CCs that have criticized these maps for being, 3 corridor, whatever you want to complain about, having too many sniping positions, they all make good points. Here's what I'm going to say about the maps, and if I was Wargaming, what I would do. I think the actual problem with the maps is that they're a little too small. I think if you added probably 1 to 2 grid squares, probably 2, all of a sudden you can fix all the problems. Part of the problem is in World of Tanks is tanks can see over half the map in distance and shoot and engage tanks at over about half the map. So that makes it really difficult not to do corridors, because obviously you can't play the center if people are shooting at you from the right. So they naturally put in these like barriers and stuff and kind of funnel players into these areas. I think if Wargaming, if you just go back and you just make the maps a little bit bigger, you'll actually be able to solve most of the problems. And I don't think this is actually as difficult as redoing the entire map. I could be wrong. I don't design maps for a living, but the fact that players can see roughly about halfway across a map from one side to the other, I think causes a lot of problems that Wargaming tries to fix with obstacles and things. And overall, look, I like playing World of Tanks, and the maps don't bother me that much. But I would think if they made them a little bit bigger, they could alleviate most of the players' criticism that they have for these maps. Okay, so I have one more thing to talk about. And I believe this is actually what is really holding World of Tanks back in the current version of the game, and that is in-game content. Now, I have a golden rule for multiplayer online games. In-game content for multiplayer online games should be group oriented, which in World of Tanks means clan oriented. Now, let's take a look at the current in-game content that's available to players in the game. Free marking tanks. Okay, this is mostly a solo activity. The bigger problem with this is 98% of players, at least, cannot 3-mark tanks, which means you have locked out most of the player base of your in-game content right there. All right, let's look at another one. Onslaught. Onslaught is mostly done as a solo player. Yes, I know you can tactically put a team together. Very few teams do it, and they're usually top end teams. I don't just see a massive amount of players participating in this, which is another problem. Players feel locked out again. And let's face it, it's largely just a rank mode for players to showcase their individual skill in. It's great if you can reach, gold, champion, what is it, legend? I don't even remember what the top one is. That's great. I mean, and I'm not saying you can't have onslaught. I'm not saying you can't have uh 3 mark tanks, but they need to have clan oriented activities. And that means bringing back the global map. Yes, this is actually what World Tanks is missing. Why is this so important? So, one, it makes players actually join clans to participate. And when you join clans, you're going to meet people, you're going to make friends, you're going to make acquaintances, you're going to form relationships. And that's going to help you actually have a reason to get log on. You get to talk to your buddies. That is great. Second part to this is knowledge transfer. You learn from other players. There is a lot of depth to World Tanks, and I doubt anyone knows everything, which means that as a group, you get to share that knowledge. This is how I actually got better at the game. Started watching other people, I started playing with better players, and hey, eventually I got pretty good at the game. Now, another part to this that's really important is this actually will get clans to form coalitions, which means it's not just individual clans. Now, on the NA server back in the day, many of you, if you're on, remember this, you had like Petco, they had like Otter, Foxy, Badger. You had the Burning Legion, which had like 4 clans in it. With I think it was Havoc was the lead one. Of course, you had the Relic community, which I'm a current member of, and there were 4 Relic clans. I think there's still 4 of us. Then there's what else? You had the Crime Syndicate with Thugs and Villain and the Blues Brothers, and you had all these coalitions that were really kind of cool. Occasionally, they'd have big server wars. Now, if you're on the EU server, I'd love to hear if you had something similar over there. Now, when I look at the global map, I think if Wargaming were to bring it back, it does not need to be for gold. Because, one, I don't think Wargaming will give out a lot of gold anymore. So I would not give out gold. What I would do instead is what you see on the screen here. Players will be able to get components, bonds, free experience. Some of the beginnings areas can be for credits. And I've added blueprints up here. Now, the blueprints are actually meant to be for building Clan Wars tanks. If you're not able to actually earn one through the maneuvers events that they can still do a couple of times a year, or at least once, there's a alternate way for players to actually earn them over time. And let's say if you're collecting these and it takes you like 6-8 months to, put enough of them together to build a Clan Wars tank, that's fine. Players that are, good enough to earn them in 2 weeks, congratulations. Other players have to find a clan that's actually going to farm these for, months. But you can eventually earn your Clan Wars reward vehicles through an in-game event, as well as other resources that players actually want, like bonds, components, credits, free XP. I know everyone wants gold. I get it. But let's be honest. Wargaming sells gold for profit, which means they don't want to be giving it away. But these are in-game currencies that Wargaming doesn't really have to worry about. Also, if they do my auction idea, it's a great way for people to gather resources to bid things on auction. I'm really wanting that EBR, is it 75? I don't remember. I really want that tier 8 premium. Come on, Wargaming. Let me. All right. So that's my idea right here. They really need the global map back. I think funneling players into clans is a good thing. Now, I'm actually going to propose a second thing. There should be 2 Clan Wars maps. One for tier 10, one for tier 6. Now, the reason for this, I would have lower, individual rewards at tier 6 than tier 10. And when I see these, I'm just thinking of things going directly to players, not to a clan treasury. I think that causes all kinds of problems. But if it goes directly with players and you have tier 6, because look, not every player wants to play tier 10. I get it. There are players that really do enjoy those lower tiers. That gives them an opportunity to do so. Another reason this is actually really important is it's very difficult for players to get enough tier 10s to really participate in stuff like this. It's a lot easier to get enough tier 6s to do something like this. Now, where that comes important is it allows players to quickly get into the in-game content, quickly get into these communities that are doing things like this, and that means they can actually start learning the game early and and forming those relationships, those friends, those buddies that they can log on and talk to and actually have a reason to play. Now, that's my plan, guys. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think? Do you like these changes? If you do, share them with your buddies. Let's get this video going. But um, I appreciate your time, guys. Y'all have a good night. Hope to see you in some good battles, and keep gaming.